My forebears came from a place called St. Elizabeth, also known as the breadbasket of Jamaica. Essentially, it feeds the rest of the country, but it doesn't have the wherewithal or the support, particularly in terms of water and other facilities, to make agriculture what it ought to be. Farmers held and continue to hold our community and country together. Growing up, it was much easier and affordable to access fresh food. A lot has changed since then. In fact, there was a recent notification that came out last week that said that it is now cheaper for many people in the Caribbean to eat out rather than to cook at home. And that is a very, very dangerous and scary statistic, because it goes to the issues of non-communicable diseases and all the challenges that we're currently facing in terms of the health crisis. But in a perfect world, we would not be dealing with COVID, climate change, conflict, and cost of living increases. But here we are. Food security tops the global agenda, and rightfully so. Value chains are disrupted, supply constraints are increasing, food and energy prices have driven inflation levels not seen in more than 4 decades. Fertilizer prices are expected to remain elevated well into 2023. As the world changes, smallholder farmers and MSMEs in the agribusiness sectors will bear the brunt of it. Their day-to-day lives affected by reduced profit levels and incomes render them powerless in a global supply system unfairly constructed. Meanwhile, the 4 main global commodity giants that control between 70 to 90% of the global grain trade have seen their profits reach record levels. Something is wrong in the way our global food system works. Something is wrong with the continued commodity dependence in developing countries. We can no longer survive on the last rung of the value chain's ladder. I was recently reading an article first published in 2014, which showed that Africa exported coffee valued at $6 billion, yet the final products sold yielded $100 billion. That's a $94 billion value-added difference outside of Africa. I think we ought to be concerned. And this is true not just for coffee. It's true for virtually every commodity produced in Africa. Valuable foreign exchange continues to seep through our hands, while very little changes for the small-scale farmers whose hard work is not sufficiently compensated. The reality is tragically represented by over 37 million people in the Horn of Africa who are currently facing acute hunger, according to the WHO. The UN forecasts that the global population is expected to reach nearly 10 billion by 2050. This means that 70% more food must be produced to feed everyone. If we don't act now to boost food security, we will have a crisis of epic proportion on our hands. Here in the Caribbean, we need to address the combined issue of hunger and nutrition. Our food consumption patterns in recent decades has resulted in high levels of food imports. I think we now have almost an 11 billion a year food import bill for a place that, 6 million, 7 million people at max, which says a lot. Why do we have such a high import bill? And the dependence on imports raises significant issues about food security. So what we have is not just a high level of food imports, but also it has ignited a silent pandemic of obesity and health-related issues. I must admit, yesterday I did enjoy the macaroni pie. I'm a sucker for macaroni pie, I must admit. But, you know, since I'm living in Geneva, I don't really get it that often, so I indulged yesterday. But I commend the joint commitment of CARICOM heads of government to reduce the food import bill by 25% by 2025. This will require all hands on deck, and as Prime Minister Motley often says, many hands make light work. ITC, as the joint agency of the World Trade Organization and the United Nations, will bring its hands to the plow. You can count on us to support this bold vision. I believe there are 4 keys that are necessary to achieve this. The first is putting MSMEs at the heart of the food security discussions. MSMEs employ a significant number of women and youth and are an important solution to the food crisis and post-pandemic recovery efforts. The second is ensuring increased digital connectivity for farmers and agribusiness. Dr. Songwe just spoke about the issue of digital connectivity and how important it now is to the business of agriculture and agribusiness. If we're not connected, we cannot move into the new areas for AI and smart technology agriculture. According to the Broadband Commission, in Africa, the cheapest smartphone costs up to 63% of the average monthly income. So while farmers in the global north are building smart farms and leveraging agri-tech solutions using robots and AI for efficiency and increased yields, how is the Caribbean and Africa preparing to compete? The third key is to make agriculture climate resilient. Data from our 2021 flagship SMECO publication report showed in Africa 60% of large firms reported that they had invested in at least one measure to reduce their exposure to environmental risks, compared to just 38% of MSMEs. Severe hurricanes and droughts will wipe us out if we don't address this issue. And this leads to my fourth and final point. We must increase access to finance to help MSMEs adapt and mitigate against climate change. Investing in resource efficiency systems or solar panels requires an upfront investment which will pay environmental dividends while increasing the resilience of the agricultural sector. Across several ITC initiatives and programs, we help producers and MSMEs build resilience to climate change, market shocks, and unlock market opportunities. In Ghana's cocoa sector, for example, we're leveraging climate-smart solutions that support farmers' livelihoods while improving biodiversity. In Jamaica, ITC and its regional partners, CARDIA among others, joined forces with the Alligator Head Foundation to protect fish stocks, restore habitats, and regenerate local economies. Here in Barbados, we're working together with partners to support large-scale investments to generate clean energy by using agricultural products and waste, such as coconut husks. But we have to do more. Collectively, valuable partnerships can accelerate and expand agribusiness opportunities. Africa and the Caribbean must support each other. And I really want to reiterate what Dr. Songwe said about us working together and being mutually supportive. It's the only way forward. Increasing interregional trade can result in increased food security. But first, it requires the development of an ecosystem to help African and Caribbean private sectors capitalize on market opportunities. For example, our report shows that Africa and the Caribbean have a two-way trade potential of 11 million for fertilizers. The Caribbean's single largest export product to Africa is anhydrous ammonia, a fertilizer input. This can help mitigate against the rising fertilizer prices that I mentioned earlier. How can we turn this into a win-win situation for both regions? We must also help to provide credible market and trade intelligence and facilitate matchmaking between buyers and sellers. We must tackle reducing tariffs and removing obstructive non-tariff measures, such as high transportation costs and investing in better port and land freight infrastructure. Lastly, we must take a holistic approach that focuses not only on trade of agricultural goods, but also agri-services. I mentioned yesterday in my opening statement that Africa's agribusiness sector holds $53 million in export growth potential for the Caribbean, most in fish, kidney beans, and vegetables. On the other hand, the Caribbean has $20 million of untapped potential to Africa in this sector. We need to make AfriCaribbean trade work. So in closing, I want to reiterate ITC's commitment to supporting both regions to increase food security and boost agribusiness opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.